The sun dipped beneath the Kansas horizon, casting long shadows over the Wilsons' struggling farm near Clearwater. Inside, their modest, time-worn home, Elia, 56-year-old farmer with hands tough as leather, and his wife Miriam, 54, whose gentle eyes carried both joy and hardship, sat silently at the kitchen table. Miriam held a letter that left her speechless, not a foreclosure notice, but one sealed with the presidential crest. She read it twice to be sure. President Donald Trump was coming to Clearwater for a veterans fundraiser, and had accepted her handwritten invitation to dinner. When she told Eli, he raised an eyebrow. "You mean the Donald Trump? Eating here?" Miriam nodded gently, placing the letter on the table like fragile glass. "I didn't expect a reply," she whispered. "I just wrote from the heart told. Him about the farm? About us, and asked him to come?" Eli scratched his gray beard. "That's a mighty bold thing, sweetheart." Miriam gazed out the window toward the barn, her voice gentle. "I just wanted to remind someone in power that small people still exist, people who are trying, people who still care." Eli looked at her, noticing something he hadn't seen in her eyes for months: hope. What they didn't know was that this dinner would not only change their lives but leave an entire room, and maybe even a nation, in stunned silence. The next morning, Miriam scrubbed the kitchen floors not to impress, but because it was something she could control. They hadn't hosted anyone in ages, let alone a president. Eli fixed the squeaky screen door and mowed the path to the porch. Their home still carried the weight of hard years' drought debt, and their daughter leaving but today. Miriam hummed as she stirred her grandmother's old chicken stew recipe. "Are you nervous?" Eli asked. Eli watched as Miriam gently set the table. "Are you nervous?" he asked. "Not for me," she replied. "For him, because tonight I'm going to tell him the truth, whether he likes it or not." Just after 6 p.m., a line of black SUVs rumbled down their gravel driveway, kicking up dust. A Secret Service agent stepped out first, scanning the modest surroundings with quiet precision. Then out stepped Donald J. Trump, dressed in a dark suit and red tie, catching the last golden rays of the Kansas sun. "Mr. President," Eli said, extending his rough, calloused hand. Trump shook it firmly, then turned to Miriam. "Must be the one who wrote me that beautiful letter." She nodded. "Yes, sir. Welcome to our home." Inside the warm kitchen, the air smelled of roasted vegetables, cornbread, and memory. Trump smiled. "Smells better than Mar-a-Lago." The table was small and worn, but lovingly set. Miriam served the stew with pride. Trump used to luxury, took a bite, and paused. "This is real food," he said, surprised. "It's made with heart." As they ate, the conversation wandered: faith, farming, family, failure. There were no cameras, no press, just people. Then Miriam asked softly, "Do you know what it feels like to almost lose everything and still feed strangers?" Her voice was steady, but the question hung heavy in the room. She looked down at the pot. "This stew, my grandmother made it during the Dust Bowl when there was nothing left but hope, and a few potatoes." Trump nodded slowly. "My father taught me about hard work. Real estate was tough too." Miriam gave a faint smile. "But did it ever take your sleep, your breath, your faith?" Eli looked down at his hands. "We nearly lost the farm last year, borrowed against the land. Almost lost it all." Trump grew quiet. "Why didn't you give up?" Eli's voice was firm. "Because this land is more than dirt, it's where we buried our son." Trump set down his spoon. "I'm sorry." Eli's voice trembled. "Our boy Levi served 2 tours overseas, came home broken. Took his own life in that barn out back." Silence fell like a curtain. Even the Secret Service looked away. Miriam touched Eli's hand gently. "He couldn't farm anymore," said. "The world had changed too much." Trump swallowed hard. "I didn't know." "I'm truly sorry." Miriam's gaze didn't flinch. "We didn't tell you for pity, Mr. President. We told you because it's real. No one in Washington hears real anymore." After dinner, Trump asked to walk the land. The fields lay, cracked and dry in the moonlight. Miriam pointed to a shed. Levi's idea. A seed store to help local farmers start again? Inside, it was filled with dust and forgotten dreams. "He wrote you once," Miriam said quietly. You never wrote back. Trump paused. I wish I had seen it. I do, Miriam added. He believed in you even when we didn't. Back inside, she opened a small box and handed Trump an envelope. Levi's last letter said it was for you. We never opened it. With trembling fingers, Trump unfolded the note. If you ever read this, Mr. President, don't forget about us, the farmers, the fighters, the families who gave everything. We're not asking for money, just respect. Trump folded the letter slowly, his eyes glassy. He was brave, Miriam whispered. He was broken, and no one saw it in time. They sat in the living room now, a soft yellow lamp casting light across the worn furniture as Eli stared into the fireplace. There's another kind of war, sir, he said quietly, the one that starts after the uniform comes off. Trump nodded. I've spoken with many vets, but it's different hearing it here. Miriam added, you see, votes, we see faces. You pass bills, we pass graves. Trump looked down. You're right. A long silence followed, broken only by the creaks of the old house, as if it, too, had something to say. We didn't invite you for pity, Miriam said. We just wanted one real conversation before we couldn't anymore. Trump raised an eyebrow. Before you couldn't. Miriam smiled sadly. I was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer 4 months ago, stage 4. The room fell heavy and still, and Eli seemed to exhale every burden he'd been carrying. Didn't want to spend my last months bitter, Miriam continued. I wanted to speak truth to someone who might carry it forward. Trump leaned in, his voice unusually soft. You don't look like someone giving up. She said, I'm making peace with my life and with people who hold power. As Miriam poured sweet tea, Trump looked around the room photos on the wall of Levi in uniform. An old wedding picture, a faded quilt handmade by Miriam's mother. You represent a part of America we don't hear enough from, he admitted. Eli nodded. We're not the loud ones, we're the tired ones, and the ones feeding the loud ones. Miriam added a quiet thought, and Trump chuckled lightly before his expression turned serious. You've given me more perspective tonight than most briefings ever have. Miriam looked him in the eye. Then don't forget us when you leave. I won't, he said softly. As he prepared to go, he asked, Can we take a photo together? To remember this? He stood beneath the porch light trump between Eli and Miriam as a Secret Service agent snapped the picture. But it wasn't. Just a photo. It captured something rare. Authenticity. Thank you for your hospitality, Trump said, and your courage. Miriam's gaze was steady. Courage isn't loud. Sometimes it's just showing up every day, even when it hurts. Trump held her gaze for a long moment before stepping into the SUV. Eli watched the convoy disappear into the quiet night. The next morning, Miriam sat on the porch wrapped in a blanket as Eli brought her coffee. Think he meant it? She asked. Eli nodded. I think you made him see something. Maybe that's enough. They didn't expect headlines, just the peace of having spoken their truth. Then came a knock at the door, a local reporter. Is it true the president visited here last night? Miriam nodded. But this wasn't politics, she said. It was personal. Somehow their story began to spread. 2 days later, the porch photo surfaced online. Posted by someone from Trump's team with the caption, Dinner with Miriam and Eli Wilson in Kansas, a night I won't forget. Within hours, Miriam and Eli was trending, people across. The country shared their own stories of grief, resilience, and family. Miriam's quiet strength touched hearts far beyond clear water. But she didn't care about the attention, only that someone had finally listened. Maybe, she told Eli, Levi's voice is finally being heard. Through us. The phone rang. It was the White House. Trump wanted to invite Miriam and Eli to Washington for a special recognition during an upcoming speech. Eli hesitated. We're not looking for medals. But Miriam took the phone. We'll come not for us, but for those who can't speak anymore. They traveled to D.C. quietly. Miriam walked slower now, her strength fading, but her eyes still sharp. At the Capitol, she stood beside Trump during a televised address to a chamber full of lawmakers. Trump introduced her. This is Miriam Wilsana, farmer's wife, a mother, a truth teller. He read Levi's letter, and then Miriam stepped forward, trembling but steady. "Not all heroes wear medals," she said. "Some come home with wounds you'll never see, and some die long before their names are known." She paused. "I didn't invite the president to make news. I invited him to make change, so no mother buries a forgotten soldier, and no farmer dies unseen." Room fell silent. She ended with, "Respect isn't partisan, it's human. We need more of it." Tears glistened in many eyes, including Trump's. The next morning, Levi's letter appeared in full across major news outlets. Veterans groups reached out, farming organizations launched campaigns in Levi's name, and Trump pledged new funding for rural mental health support, but more importantly, he listened. Miriam's voice had broken through the noise. 2 weeks later, she passed away peacefully in her sleep, wrapped in the quilt her mother had sewn. Eli buried her beside Levi, under the old cottonwood tree behind the barn. Trump sent a handwritten note. "Miriam reminded me what America looks like at its best. I will carry her words forever." Eli placed the note next to the folded flag at her memorial. As townsfolk gathered, Eli held the same letter Levi once wrote. "This land has seen grief," he said, "but it's also seen grace." A hush fell, and in that silence, Miriam's final words echoed not just through clear water, but across the country. Respect isn't partisan, it's human. And for once, the world paused and truly listened.